Your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles to be specific. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Agree to Disagree here on thenewamericanmedia.com on the TNAM radio network. My name's Brian Engelman. I am your host, as I have been for the past 4.5 years, and I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us live, listening after the fact, subscribing, following, tweeting, all that jazz, all that fun stuff we're doing in 2016. It's beautiful, it's brilliant, it's fantastic that we've leveled the playing field a little bit. We're no longer at the mercy of mass media. We don't have to soak up and absorb the party line, the propaganda, the things we're told we're supposed to believe. Yeah, the beautiful part is we get to connect in our own little micro groups. And it's a lot of fun, and that's what we've been doing here at the New American Media. We've been connecting, we've been building, we've been growing over the past few years. Today's guest has been a part of our program for several years now. Met up with her first, I believe it was in the run-up to the 2012 election. I remember we talked about Ron Paul and the Mayan calendar, and it was a lot of fun. We met at the Conscious Life Expo, and we've stayed in touch ever since. And my understanding is she will be at the Conscious Life Expo again this year, coming up in, I have a calendar in front of me, coming up in February of 2016. When would that be? Sometime Friday the 19th through the 21st of Sunday in February. I'll have Laura explain some of that to you directly. But yes, thank you for joining us. Check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. Subscribe, youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. And if you do that, you can just search Agree to Disagree or Brian Engelman and Laura Eisenhower, and you'll find all those videos, our previous interactions. It's all archived there. On Twitter, we're at American_media_. And on Facebook, you can do a search for The New American Media, with space in between and like the page. So, what's going on in the world? David Bowie passed away. What is it? What was his quote? I've done just about everything possible to do. Saying he transcended music and art. A couple songs, Ground Control to Major Tom, and changes. Okay, cool. Cultural icon and a whole bunch of stuff. Gotta say, I've never been a huge David Bowie fan, but, rest in peace. Condolences to the friends, fans, and family of Mr. David Bowie. Alabama plays Clemson tonight for the College Football National Championship. As an Ohio State fan, I wish that we would have had a chance to defend our title with only one loss in the rain to the number 5 ranked Michigan State Spartans at the time. On the last-second field goal, I feel like we should have had a chance to crack that top 4. I just remember this time last year was absolutely amazing. A wonderful time to be a sports fan. We also do a sports show called The Unhappy Hour. I'm an Indians, Cavs, and Browns fan, so I've never celebrated a championship in my 36 years. So those are all archived as well. Check those out. And if you missed it this past weekend, you missed some crazy endings in the National Football League playoffs. The Minnesota Vikings and the Cincinnati Bengals went full Browns. Never go full Browns. Never go full Browns. Man, they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory and screwed those up. Whew. So, anyhow. And then in the political realm, Rand Paul and Carly Fiorina have been cut from the upcoming debate. Interesting. Sometimes I want more people to participate, and sometimes I want fewer people to participate. I'm not really sure the perfect way to run an election cycle. I'm not sure what the perfect way to run an election is. I'm not sure if there is a perfect way to have an election. I'm not sure elections are ever going to fix anything. And of course, the lineage of Miss Eisenhower, there was somebody in her family that warned us against the encroaching military-industrial complex. Who was that? Who was that down the Eisenhower family line that warned us that regardless of which puppet you put in place, the military-industrial complex will reign supreme? Oh, yeah, Dwight Eisenhower? Yes, that's right. So it's interesting. We want to fix the country. We want to get things on the right path. We want safety and security and stability and love and peace and happiness and kumbaya and singing David Bowie changes as we bring in the new leader. But it's felt for so long that it's just meet your new puppet, same as the old puppet. Here's a Bush, here's a Clinton. Pick. It's Coke or Pepsi. Fantastic. And that's what has been exciting, at least about the concept of Donald Trump. What's been exciting has been, well, wait a minute, this guy he doesn't need to grovel at the feet of donors. He doesn't need to bend over backward and sign pledges to political action committees saying, yes, if elected, I will absolutely do your bidding. It makes him a wild card. It makes him somebody that the Republican establishment absolutely wants nothing to do with. And you're seeing polls come out now that Trump would smash a Hillary Clinton campaign. Is Trump a great candidate? I don't know. Is he a perfect candidate? Far from it. I was talking with Larry Elder a couple days ago, and I was saying, man, I just wish we could do a Build-A-Bear candidate. I wish we could do a Mr. Potato Head candidate. All right, I'll take your ears, I'll take your lips, I'll take your hat, put these feet on. Okay, let's change that. Different color. Sure. Okay, cool. I think a lot of these potential candidates do bring something unique to the table. However, I don't know if I'm necessarily excited about any of them. But, hey, changes, right? State of the Union tomorrow, we're going to bring Ford Fisher with news to share. He's going to be at the event. He's going to be on our show Wednesday. Tomorrow, we're going to have Blake the Eccentric Wally. We're going to be talking about the stuff going on in the news. Adam Kokesh joins us on Thursday, and then Gerald Salente on Friday. It's a fun, fun week, everybody. But without further ado, let's go to Miss Laura Eisenhower to bring her back into the show and get into things. This is my favorite part, by the way, when it rings and I wait. I hope it's yours, too.
Hello?
Laura, it's Brian, and you are live on Agree to Disagree. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Brian?
I'm living the dream. Thanks for asking. Oh, man, it's been months and months since we've last talked. What is new in 2016 with you? It's a brand new year. It's a brand new start. New energy, new ideas. What's going on with you?
Wow, well, that's definitely what's happening. I had, kind of a challenging 2015, but it helped me to make lots of necessary changes. I'm actually going to be moving up north with my kids, getting them squared away. They're 17 and a half and want to live up in that area. I've got a lot of events coming up. I'm working on my book and just really keeping my eye on everything as far as, this, incredible shift that we're in. So, yeah, it's been interesting, though, everything leading up. There was, quite a lot of interferences, I guess you could say, and my partnership is now moved into friendship zone, which is healthy for both of us because we've been not able to live together. And so, yeah, lots of amazing changes, and so I'm feeling good and excited about the year ahead.
Now, I don't know if you caught the intro to the show or not, but I was just quoting David Bowie with his changes. And you just chimed in right there with changes. And it really is. It seems like it's a time where the old paradigm, it's kind of run its course. It's interesting. It's like we're watching it get boxed up and moved to the Natural History Museum. We're seeing it in politics. We're seeing it in media. We're seeing it, maybe in some of the organized religions, to the point where you're also seeing like this negative anti-reaction. You're seeing really interesting forces kind of cropping up, popping up, and some people are even going so far as to say like you're almost seeing an unleashing of evil. It's just like everything is pent up, and the control system no longer, the facade is not able to hold on to the image anymore. It's all falling apart, and so you're getting these bursts of weirdness, of changes, of evil. Talk about that for a second. I want to specifically drill down on what you're doing with your book, but first you mentioned the shift. Talk about the shift, because I mentioned earlier in our intro that we met right before the 2012 Mayan calendar change, and the shift was very big on everybody's minds at the Conscious Life Expo at that point. So here we are about 4 years later. Talk about the shift and how we're kind of seeing it manifest itself.
Well, there's a lot about, disclosure and what that's going to look like. And we are dealing with, ETs that work with artificial intelligence that is basically kind of probably the biggest threat that we're dealing with, but we have to understand that, I mean, even in the word artificial intelligence, it doesn't sound that intimidating compared to organic, divine intelligence and connection to spirit, and how that has the, potential, to really overcome these things. It's just with these technologies, they're able to stay one step ahead by, really diverting some of the solutions that are, ready to unfold. And so it's really up to the collective, and this is why it's so important that these shows get put out there and that people, open their minds to, this level of information, because there's either a disclosure that's very limited based on what the elitists want us to know so that they can stay in control, or a mass disclosure that exposes everything that's going to lead to a lot of stress and challenge for people, because, those that have been somewhat unconscious, it's kind of new to them compared to folks like us. But at this point, you got to figure they're somewhat warmed up. I mean, if you can't look at the sky and admit that there's something going on, I don't know what else to tell you, But so this is a really important year where we really, come together, and because the only real manipulation that is a threat is where our creative energy gets infected by propaganda or, different fear tactics, even if it's something that appears real. We have to understand that we have a lot of psychic power, and our focused intention can steer things in other directions. We're in alignment with the galactic plane. We've got, what Corey Good talks about, the blue avians and these spheres that have been coming in, and our ability to shift our reality is at an all-time high, and it's going to continue to increase. But if we, allow ourselves to get immersed in these traps, then we are merging with artificial intelligence, and what the chemtrails have done, and the impact that they've had on our bodies, will make it hard to sort of shake ourselves loose of it. So, but if we can ride this time right now and, really, get people to look at the truth. I mean, it's not going to take that many numbers for, us to get over this hump, but we can't rely too much on, disclosure and what's going to come through even positive factions of intelligence organizations or, alliances that have been working on our behalf, because they're being massively compromised because of this artificial intelligence. They have not been able to take down this artificial intelligence. So as long as we're aware of this, then we're not kind of looking outside of ourselves. We're doing what we really need to do, which is probably why we're being pushed into this corner, so that we can truly upgrade our DNA and expand our consciousness and start to work with the powers of our creativity. And that's the one thing that's been targeted this whole time that we have to get a grip on.
I felt that way the whole time growing up. The creativity and thinking outside the box, that was the last thing that they were interested in nurturing as a child. It was all about smashing you down and turning you into the same square peg to fit into the same square slot. It was almost just like they were trying to mold these pieces of putty into almost like an assembly line, just kind of cranking out the same exact product. So, your Happy Meal tastes the same whether you're in Bangladesh or Bangor, Maine. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. But you were talking about creativity, and I wish people could see. One of the things we're going to be creative with this year is we're going to make the switch and go kind of more to a video show and kind of bring that element in. That's more of a creative thing. But I wish I could show people right now what happens when I do a show, because I start taking notes on things I want to talk about. And all I got to do, Laura, is let you wind up for about 2 minutes, and I take about 30 notes. I'm like, oh my God, where the heck do I go next with this? I think where I want to ask is about the galactic plane, and you talked about the spheres coming in. Are you talking about those... I don't know what you would call them, the meteors, the comets, the falling debris from a Russian space. Is that what you were talking about, the spheres? I wanted to get clarification on that.
The spheres have to do with, they're the size of planets, and they've been coming in since the 80s, and they're basically to buffer our entry into the photon belt and just all the intense waves of light particles that are coming into the planet. And what they're trying to do is even the playing field and actually quarantine the planet so that the elitists and the reptilian factions that have been responsible for a lot of destruction on this planet, so that they can't leave. Now, some have left, but not everybody has been able to. And they actually, from what Corey Good says, and there's a lot of other sources, that also parallel this or say similar things. They made a deal to wipe their hands clean to leave a while back, and that never ended up happening. And so they're sort of in a very compromised position, somewhat trapped here, while people are rapidly waking up. Their only real hope is this artificial intelligence thing. But, people can really feel the impact it has on the physical, because it really goes against the current of our soul energy and our spiritual nature. And when we're in alignment with the galactic plane, the transmissions that we're receiving are getting us more and more in touch with it. So if we're positively orientated, it's going to be easier to move in that direction and have epiphanies that help us to really unfold into our divine purpose. If we're, in our negative ego, it's going to be easier to get stuck into, fall into those traps. So it's either, you enable it and you don't realize it and you're unconscious to it, or you feel like a victim to it. But at least being a victim to it, you're starting to be privy to the agendas, and, it can be a great catalyst to recognize the oppression and the control and be pissed off for a little bit, but then, take that next step and really expand. And so these spheres are like, I think they're like massive orbs almost. They're energy ball. They're just huge energy. They're coming right through the sun, right through the grand central sun and coming into Earth. And it's really to help us so that we can process and integrate this light energy, while supposedly it's also to quarantine these dark beings. And they're not, the beings that are connected to them, aren't going to do the work for us, but they're helping on a lot of levels, assist us in taking the next step of what we need to do. And that's what I've come to understand through work like Corey Good and Lisa Renee and my own meditations. And, I've been aware of this shift time since I was a kid. Similar to you, it's like I could see the control agendas and, just how they were targeting our creativity and our dream energy. And I've been aware of, this window period since I was a child, being prepared for it. So this all, goes along with what I've, always understood, but I didn't really understand it in these terms. And so it's interesting to hear what different speakers have to say. I don't really fix my beliefs on everything that I hear, but if it resonates with what is already within me and my body says yes, then, I like to speak up about it. And I really do feel that that's exactly what's happening. And it's really up to us now. They've given us everything to either annihilate ourselves or to shift ourselves into a whole other level. And it's not up to them anymore. It's up to us, to step back. It's like, say we're in a relationship with somebody who's betraying us or cheating on us. If we see enough of the warning signs and red flags, it's really up to us to get the hell out of it, to find true love or to find, peace. But people don't know how to detach. They become addicted, and their self-worth, gets caught up in it, even if it's abusive. So people have to just be bold and say, I'm done.
We have become addicted. We've become addicted on credit cards and debt. We've become addicted to high fructose corn syrup and cheap, easy, simple to just grab something and unwrap the plastic and stuff it in our mouths. We've become addicted to... my brother had a phrase, addicted to distraction. He was the one, by the way, if anyone was listening to the pregame, he's the one that was writing most of those songs that we were listening to for the intro. But yeah, he had a phrase, addicted to distraction. And I'll tell you what, now that your cell phones can just, they are so powerful, it is so easy to become distracted, Laura. I don't know if you've been experiencing this or not, but I have noticed this as an ADD kid myself, in the past couple years, as your phone gets more awesome, the more distracted I've become. Is that something you've found yourself trying to deal with over the past couple of years too, or is that just me?
No, I think it's definitely true. I mean, I'm not really playing, games or socializing that much, but because people like you and me are constantly doing work, it's a great place to, do updates and check out what's going on. But at the same time, it's like, there's got to be a balance. And, and there's new notifications. Like I got the app, I guess, to get my Facebook notifications. And literally I just have to shut my phone because in the night it's like ding, 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 ding. It's like little bubbles showing up of every little message or every little post that somebody does. It's like I'm getting alerted because somebody's posting in a group that I'm not even, participating in very much. It's like, great, so-and-so just posted in a group. I'm glad that woke me up. And, during the day, just like trying to get stuff done, I put it on vibrate, but it is very distracting. And, I mean, if we look around, every restaurant's got a television. If we look at the public, everybody's buried in their phone. It's very rare that you're going to see people not buried in their cell phones. You know, and I can see the draw. You know, it's like there's so much that, you know, you can do. You can check your emails. You can text your friend. You know, so you're still kind of interacting with people, but at the same time, the emissions or the EMS or the vibrations that are coming off of it and the subtle things that it's doing to us, you know, really is something we need to watch out for and say, okay, you know, there's got to be a balance. There really does. And I want to make a habit of shutting my phones off and even my computer off more often. Because, I mean, think about it. If light codes are streaming in and we're connecting to the sun within the core of this planet that holds the ascension energies and it's coded with it, a 13D core, you know, we need to be feeling into that. The electronics, there's lots of infiltration. There's lots of other frequencies that are streaming in. And it's fun, though, because, you know, I see it kind of like a mix. Well, if we're doing our mission work, isn't it okay that we use our phone because we're using it for a good purpose? Well, that doesn't exactly obliterate some of the energies that are coming through, but at the same time, if we hold our frequency high enough, I think we can divert it, but I certainly don't want to be a guinea pig for that theory.
We're talking with Laura Eisenhower. Yeah, Laura, the interesting quote that I got the other day, I believe it was from John Correa. He teaches over at ASP. What's it called? Cover your ASP is what the phrase is, and then it's active self-protection. It's a self-defense and firearm safety and training site, and he's been a guest on the show before. And I believe he's the one that put the post out there. He said, you don't have to attend every fight or conversation that you're invited to. And that just hit me like a frying pan, you know, because when you're running a media site and you're doing radio shows and you're in a sports group over here, you're in a political group over here, you're in this, you're in that. At some point, you just got to take a breath and put your hands up and go, yeah, you know, and I like what you were saying was maybe just pick certain hours of the day, just go, I'm going radio silent for a while. This is going to be my time, and I'm not going to become addicted to distraction. And yeah, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. If we're using it for the powers of good, then hey, but it's also something that you could get, it's a lot like anything. You can do it in moderation, whether you have a couple beers or this or that. It's also easy to slip into excess, and that's something that we all have to kind of be aware of. You know, and talking about the excess, no place is that more prevalent than when you look at our country's budget deficits and you look at what's going on in the geopolitical stage. Laura, I know you're more along the anti-political, apolitical, not necessarily with your lapel pin and a little American flag or anything necessarily, but I guess in general, we're heading into a very charged year. It's really going to, I don't want to say tear the nation apart, but it's going to polarize people, and it's going to really focus in on attacking the other and trying to boost yourself, and we're going to see it. So, I mean, you come from a political family, and we, like I said, we met back in 2012, and we were talking about the candidates then. How have you seen the election playing so far, and what are you kind of anticipating as we move forward to the election?
Well, that's a good question. I really wanted to kind of follow the campaign trail of Hillary Clinton and spread Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien to give somebody, you know, to give people something to think about before they vote. But then I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, I'm going to, you know, try and just share like I normally do and spread information about Kathy O'Brien's story. I don't think Hillary has a chance of winning, so I'm not that worried about it. And, you know, there's something about that whole structure that's collapsing. No matter what sort of facade they're holding on the outside, they can't really contain it anymore. There's too much negative talk about all of them for it to really go very far, I feel. Bernie Sanders I feel pretty darn good about, but again, I've distanced myself, and I always have, from government, voting, you know, everything, because to me it's a structure that doesn't work. Yeah, you can vote somebody into office that, you know, can potentially change it, but when you look at the, you know, secret government and some of those forces, you know, it's really challenged. But, you know, I think we have more hope in this election than normal, because I really do feel all of it's collapsing. And if you put somebody like Bernie Sanders out there that's aligned with those that are really trying to help the planet, you know, he could be a part of this greater disclosure, or begin to have an open mind to those that are pushing this forward, because he seems like a fair person. But again, he supports mandatory vaccinations, and, So I don't like to make agreements and vote somebody into office when, I feel the legacy I'm connected to, or at least what Eisenhower and I have in common, which I see in his quotes, are, about freedom and about, love and respect, and about, these principles that relate to our spiritual bodies that we sort of lose touch with when we're focused on politics or the money system or, all these different things. We have to understand that the universe is abundant, and to fall back on ourselves a little bit and what we can create together, I think, is where the focus needs to be. I think we have to kind of have our foot in both worlds, though. We can't just abandon one for the other. But I just know that my mission or work has a lot to do with building momentum with the other, so that when people realize that the government structure is not built on anything that's going to serve us or our sovereignty, they see something else that they can enter into and participate in that empowers them and helps them to stand in a leadership role, and also helps them to co-create their reality instead of banking on somebody to change the planet or change the nature of the game, when we all have to be participants. And I think when people vote somebody into office, they become complacent. They sort of sit back, and then they complain about whoever they voted for, kind of like, well, he didn't do the job we thought. And it's like, well, are you? Like, get up,
Right,
get
right.
informed, spread the information. It's like, let's all take on the leadership role. And I'm just not into this hierarchy system, knowing what exists under the surface and also not seeing where it's really helped us. Things really took a turn after the Eisenhower administration. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to do a lot that I wish he was able to do, but, I feel that that's where my attention needs to be, and I feel like if I were to vote, I'm making a contract with something that I just don't know enough about, and I got, it's not like I'm going to, not continue doing what I'm doing, but I think people are going to have a lot of eye-opening experiences. But I think we have to get really loud as disclosure starts to happen and really analyze what type of disclosure is this? Is it leading us more into transhumanism, more into artificial intelligence, or is it really legit, and is it holding these elitists accountable? Because those sort of signs are in our favor, the ones that keep linking us to these scientific breakthroughs, that keep merging us with machine, and all these technological advancements that dumb us down, really, because it doesn't give us the opportunity to advance our spiritual abilities. We really got to watch out for it, because if we don't have a voice to warn people, I don't know who does. And a lot of people are going to fall into that trap, and they're already in that trap. So, I think it's a time for us all to get louder, but I also feel that if enough of us are really awakened to it, it's going to help those that are on the inside trying to assist us, and they'll be able to overcome the artificial intelligence systems that are slowing them down and delaying them or obstructing them.
Now, Dwight Eisenhower, that was your great-grandfather. I have that correct, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm making sure I had that correct. Your great-grandfather, while he wasn't able to do all of the things, maybe like you were saying, perhaps all of the stuff that he wanted to do, a lot like David Bowie. David Bowie gave us several decades of work, and a lot of those songs are just going to live on. They're just going to be there, and they're going to be played for generations and generations. And if I lost track a long time ago the amount of times that the military-industrial complex speech has been played on so many radio shows and television stations and movies and articles that I've read. That sentiment is just, you talk about a bumper sticker, really kind of before the bumper sticker politics. I mean, I guess I like Ike. I digress. Let me change that thought a little bit. But really, just the warning of a military-industrial complex, it really is something that has stood the test of time. You were talking about transhumanism a second ago. Have you seen the movie Ex Machina? That was recommended to me so many times, and I finally caught it like 2 weeks ago. Have you seen that one?
No. I'll have to look out for that.
Yeah, it's called Ex Machina, M-A-C-H-I-N-A, 2 words, Ex Machina. And, it's, well, I don't want to give too much of it away, but yeah, it's about the transhumanist, it's about the merging of man and machine, it's about the singularity, it's about artificial intelligence. I want to drill down on that a little bit more, but I still need to take one back step, back to Kathy O'Brien. Back to the Hillary Clinton thing, for the people that aren't aware, I pulled up some of the information here, I'm taking a look at it, but in your words, what is some of the stuff that is attached to Hillary Clinton, whether it's Kathy O'Brien or whether it's Juanita Broaddrick and just decades of abuse from Bill Clinton and the corruption? Just talk a little bit about why you had been feeling so strongly that it was important to at least explain these stories to people that might have been whitewater washed out of the public realm of conversation these days, because she's been put up on this pedestal like oh look, it's this great woman and what a courageous leader, we must follow. Oh wow, she's so great. But if you dig around, there's a lot to find, and I actually had to look this one up, this Kathy O'Brien thing. So in your words, can you explain a little bit more of that?
Gosh. I mean, we have to understand, too, that they do this on purpose so that, everybody thinks it's a huge breakthrough for humanity, like, oh, a female president, and that fits in with us feeling like we're making progress. They did that with Obama. And all this feminist stuff and racist stuff, is a programming. It was taught to us. We're not born that way, and it's a controlled agenda so that they introduce things that lead us to believe that we're progressing. Now, of course, there needed to be feminism. There needed to be a push for equal rights. I mean, it was ridiculous. So all that was important, but, then it starts to miss the mark. Then it starts to go into territory where we're being taken advantage of because of how exciting it is. And so, she's not human, and it's not about, a female leader anymore. She to me is incredibly demonic and taken over. And Kathy O'Brien described sexual assault perpetrated by Hillary Clinton and connected to CIA MK Ultra, and it's basically meaning, Kathy O'Brien was a CIA mind control slave, and Hillary Clinton was using her as a sex slave. And so I've done a conference with Kathy, and I'm doing another one with Kathy, and there's other people like Bryce Taylor who talks about similar things, and there's a lot that backs this up. I mean, it's not just one person, and I mean, we're dealing with massive infiltration. We're not really dealing with anybody who's probably what they used to be. And somebody like Hillary, I mean, what would you call that, a handler or somebody who's a monarch herself? I mean, that's a little bit difficult. I mean, she's a part of the Illuminati that uses these individuals. And so, to me, she's just, corrupt and demonic, because that's what it's all about for her. I mean, they did these games, I guess, where they hunt you down. I mean, if anybody listens to anything that Kathy O'Brien says, it's horrific. And Mark Phillips, pulled her out of it and helped to deprogram her. But the thing is, like Bill, I mean, if there is generational abuse or trauma-based mind control on them, they're dealing with alters and they're dealing with parts of themselves that they are not fully aware of. And that's why they seem sincere to people, because they're in an altar. But if you switch that and it's functioning in a different program, then all sorts of unbelievable stuff happens. And I'm not sure if these dark entities channel through some of these altars, and that's why they go as far into this level of abuse as they do, and then they switch into something that seems relatable so that we all kind of form a likeness or relatability with them. It's incredibly complex. But, when you look into Henry Kissinger and Dick Cheney and the Bushes and just the Illuminati families, it's like something's going on in there, and they give up their children for these projects. But the ringleaders are the ones that are using these, sex slaves or trained assassins. They seem to be a little bit more in the driver's seat. I mean, I'm still trying to, get a grip on it, but as far as I'm concerned, if Hillary gets voted into office, or if anybody thinks that voting for her is a good idea, you're making a contract with the dark side big time. And it's hard to research this stuff, and it's easy to want to just say, oh, they're crazy, or they don't, it's not real. But, it's just like with a kid who says, something's happening. You got to give the benefit of the doubt to where danger is showing up and not ignore it. Wait till you prove it wrong before you act like it's not happening.
Wow, yeah, talking about the handler and talking about MK Ultra, it got me thinking. I jotted a couple of these down. Do you ever listen to the band Muse? Do you listen to them?
Yeah, I have. I haven't in a while, though.
Yeah, they have a song Exopolitics, but yeah, Muse. I just went and saw them a couple weeks ago, but they have songs The Handler, MK Ultra. They did an entire tour called Harp. Time is Running Out, Apocalypse Please, Knights of Sidonia, Stockholm Syndrome, Uprising, Resistance. And yeah, as you were mentioning that, I just went, wow, man, if there's one band that's totally plugged into this, it's Muse. I recommend everybody checks those guys out. But yeah, as you were doing that, I was doing a search here, looking at some of these stories with this Kathy O'Brien, and I mean, and that's okay. That's one story. Now, do we need to go to Bill to see what he was doing with Juanita Broderick and what he was doing and what Hillary was doing? We just did a show on this a couple days ago, and it was pretty much about all of the threats and intimidation and the stuff that Hillary was doing to the abused women to shut them up so that she could keep her power. And you just went, I don't know, it's beyond the pale, Laura. It's beyond the pale that people like this are still existing and still not in jail somewhere. Maybe that just speaks to our corrupt system, but it's pretty disappointing so many decades in that she's waltzing around and flying on private planes instead of rotting in a prison cell.
Yeah, I mean, one of her titles is a 6th-level Illuminati witch and sadistic monarch slave handler. So she's definitely more of a handler, but at the same time, the handlers are being compromised. I mean, we're dealing with a negative ET agenda, as much as that's kind of freaky, but at the same time, there's a lot more to the story. I mean, we have native species that they used to think were extraterrestrial. We have off-planet species that came in after the cataclysms and took advantage of us and altered our DNA, and hybrids, and dark agendas coming in from the Dracos, and it's really difficult, because we go through the school system and then we come out and we haven't even begun to educate ourselves about what's really happening. So when we think of all those years of being in school, which I never paid attention in school, so I was kind of like, okay, I knew something was way off. But it's like you have to completely re-educate yourself, and I wake up every morning in shock almost. I mean, it's like it doesn't ever sink in or get normal or easy or like, oh, that's just the way it is here. It's like, no, this is ridiculous. That, think of what the jails are filled with, the prison systems, and the worst criminals are being voted into office and paraded around, like given respect and funding and attention and praise, and it's just nuts. And, the Queen of England, I mean, I just saw an article that said that she was charged as guilty for child abuse or child trafficking. I don't know if that's a true story. But then we think of all the stuff that, is BS and disinfo. But, I would say anything about the royal family being corrupt or most individuals in politics is not disinfo. But, at the same time, there's a lot of smearing going on that might be, more for the people, of course, that can make a difference. And so people have to know how to filter the information, and that's why the inner work is so important. So I think that the critical thing that we need to do now in the next couple of years is pull our energy back to ourselves and not live life from the outside in, but from the inside out. Because if we're constantly reacting to everything that's external, without developing our intuition and discernment, we're not going to be very grounded, and we're not going to really be able to shift. And it's exactly like what you were saying. It's the addiction to distraction, and they're masters at it. And that's why they create the false flags and all these different events, just as humanity is about to take a huge leap in consciousness, so that they can throw us off. And, these memes, aren't really working, though. I mean, the Ebola one, that didn't last very long. There's a lot of other ones. They put out the bait. They want humanity to eat the bait and to believe it and to fear it so that we enable it. That's how they infect our creative energy. But we, so many of us are like, yeah, that's bullshit. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Or a bombing or a shooting might happen. And I wouldn't say that we should assume everything's conspiracy, but when you start to see what the experts say, most of these events are staged, and it takes our energy back. Because you'll notice, like, when an event happens, it becomes a virus on Facebook, and it's spread everywhere, and everybody's focusing on the tragedy, which is understandable, but you got to be willing to look at these other layers without completely assuming either. It takes a lot of investigation, and that's why it's good to have people out there that are willing to do that extra work. But we, of course, need support as well, and just as we're supporting the human race, and, we got to stop feeding the beast and start nourishing those that are really looking out for each other and themselves and the planet, and, unity consciousness and spiritual expansion and the regeneration of our resources. I mean, everything else should be completely abandoned.
So is that going to be at the core of the book that you're working on? Which direction are you taking this with the project that you're going to be cranking out here?
Yeah, gosh, it's going to, it's so hard to get it done, but
You're telling me I've had one in the works, Laura, for 4 or 5 years now, and it just sits there, and you add more notes to it, and you keep thinking. I know, I totally understand.
Right, because we're so in the moment, dealing with what's in front of us. It's difficult to create the time and space to really, and I admire people that are able to do it so much, and I think I will be able to create the time and space, and that's kind of what this move is about, to really get myself in a situation that affords me that kind of time. And my kids are, almost 18, which is wow, that's going to be interesting. But yeah, my book is a lot about, things since the very beginning for me, how my mission got awakened when I was a kid, what it involved. It involved, being prepared for the shift that we're in, a lot about, the natural stargates, our DNA, and also tapping into Eisenhower and his guidance, and things about, extraterrestrials and how they've interacted with our governments, and sort of putting all those dots together. And then the journey I took that was basically going into the underworld for 20 years and going through this massive sort of death process where I wasn't really existing in my body for a really long time. It took so much to get back. And I didn't really know what the hell was going on, but I did deep down. It was okay, I'm familiar with this because I've done this in past lives, and this is the underworld. This is going in, it relates to the labyrinth and things that, they understood in Avalon and Glastonbury, and, things that are very mythological as far as, going through the 7 gates of hell to clear the chakra system of the control agendas and the negative archons in order to transmute them or transform them into the 7 pillars of wisdom, which helps us to move into our galactic chakras and integrate polarity and also integrate our higher heart. And so it's about my journey of really understanding this and how it relates to certain mythologies, and how on many levels a lot of us are doing this without realizing it. It's a part of our initiation into, our galactic consciousness and into our divine blueprint, and being grounded in that, and how that's been robbed from us. So it's kind of really telling the story from what I've been through and relating it to the greater potential that everybody holds, and how we all got to kind of work together to get to the next level, because that's what the Ascension's all about. So yeah, it's also, bringing in the exopolitical and, how it links with the things we've been seeing on the world stage, and also the things that have been kept secret from us as far as these ET agendas, and how, they put frequency fences in our DNA, and they've messed with the Earth grids so that we wouldn't be able to achieve this, and how much extra energy and intention it takes to move through these barriers, because we have a lot stacked against us. I mean, massive alien technologies were put in place 20,000 years ago, 26,000 years ago. I mean, and even before that make it very difficult for our DNA to heal, and for us to synthesize the masculine and feminine and the electron and protons, and how that relates to the stargates on Earth, and how the grids of the planet are an exact replica of our 12-tree grid, which is our DNA. So a lot of my presentations are about this, but kind of writing a book and bringing my own story into it is sometimes I'm just oh my God, I'll get a burst, and I'm yes, and I'll write, and then the rest of the time I'm just okay, I just got to put these presentations together, because I'm kind of writing the book as I am just in the flow of talking. So sometimes I'm maybe, I just got to wait on all that, but it's really a guidebook of how to, do these activations, and how we all carry the same potential, and what's been getting in our way, and how to overcome it, and my story of how I overcame it, and also how I overcame being recruited to go off planet to Mars, and, kind of if I can do it, you can do it, and, and so many of us are already doing this, and it feels great, because it's not so lonely. Not that I like to use words like lonely, but, I think we all experienced a lot of isolation before we found one another, right?
Oh, the internet's the best place in the world for that. When Edward Snowden came out, and I'm so looking forward to having him on the show. Whenever we're able to set it up, we have feelers out there. But when he just did something so simple, a couple years ago as just letting us know that the NSA is spying on you. Oh, and it's not just that they're doing this. They're doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down. Yeah, they're doing stuff you didn't even realize they could do. And it was so helpful for me to just go, I'm not alone. And for a chance to just take a breath out and go, to all you people that said I was crazy, I was a Looney Tune, I was wearing tinfoil hats. Come on, man. George Orwell in 1984 was warning us about this stuff. We've been doing this stuff for decades. It instantly made me feel part of a global community of people that knew, people that our spidey senses were tingling, our intuition was keeping us awake at night. It was just warning us something evil is afoot. There's something creepy lurking. You just have that extra sense, the sense that something's wrong. And, it's a great feeling of the opposite of loneliness. I don't know, togetherness or camaraderie, whatever the opposite of loneliness is. But yeah, it's having a chance to have a level playing field where we can all do radio shows. We don't just have to listen and wait what Rachel Maddow and Bill O'Reilly are going to tell us to think. We can actually think, and we can connect with people across the globe. And it's the most opposite thing to loneliness that I could think of. And absolutely, that's kind of at the core of the Conscious Life Expo and a lot of these other places where you go give presentations, and I want to talk to you about that in a second. But I want to circle back to the secret government thing, because it all kind of comes together. I know we did touch on it during the last time we talked, but for the people that are listening that might have missed that, it's a really interesting component. We don't need the full 400-level college dissertation on it, but you mentioned that 20 years of darkness where you kind of went into that place. Can you tell me the beginning of when you started to realize you were a little different and you had a calling somewhere? Where did that on your timeline mix in with the 20 years along with the Mars recruitment? When was it the 20 years versus when you knew something was going on and when Mars kicked in?
Ever since I was really little. I mean, just the contrast of, the family energy and just what I was processing and what I was seeing and how I was able to sort of read between the lines, and no matter what I shared, it was kind of shut down or interrupted or it's like, okay, I really am not being fully understood here, and that's okay. And I would have times of, being somewhat ostracized or really sort of like outcast, and other times where all sorts of magic would happen and I would really be able to attract people to me. And it was just a very like magical, like, wow, this is what it feels like to, connect on a much deeper level than, maybe it was at summer camp or like things connected to the wilderness compared to school systems where everybody's, trying to achieve the good grades or, being sort of like not really resonating with it. I mean, I was friends with those kind of kids, but, I would say my whole life, because I was always aware of like my past lives without having to name any names, but more like how it links to a mission that I've been on for a while, because it was all very familiar to me. It was sort of like, oh, here we go again. Okay, well, here I am. And this is what needs to be done. And just really being like, I was so empathic, I still am. My sensitivity levels were so extreme that I could feel literally everything on the planet.
Did that feel like a deja vu? Did it feel like a deja vu feeling when you go, oh, this again? Or was it different from a deja vu?
It was a little different because it wasn't like a repeat of, it's been exactly like this, but it was like, same mission, different era, different challenges, different things to master, but the same sort of theme of liberation. We got to bring balance. We got to get our sovereignty back. We got to knock out these bad guys, and just really being aware of that, but not having the technical terminology, but just knowing, like, I would say things to my mom and, or just to people that would hint. And then the 20 years thing happened. It kind of started, around, teenage years. And it's like I could never really be there. And so, yeah, a lot of projections of, like, learning disabilities and really, like, not in my body at all. And, when I was maybe partying with friends, I would tell them about the shift time, and nobody heard of the shift time or even knew what I was talking about. And I was basing it on, like, stuff that I was connecting with about, the Mayans and Quetzalcoatl. And so I got my mission tattooed. I was like, okay, I got to write this down because I'm going to get really lost because nobody's getting this. So in my early 20s, I got these calendar type things and these, things that represent the shift. And the labyrinth and all these different things that represented my journey. I'm like, okay, as long as I can keep centered in myself with this, I'm going to be fine. But if I don't jot this down, I wasn't really thinking like, oh, I'm going to go get tattoos. Just like, I have to. This is medicine. And then it just sort of like held space for me while I kind of went into these really crazy underworld journeys where, you know, I was facing a lot of heavy forces of opposition and control. And, you know, finally I gave up because I couldn't create anything without feeling attacked. And I'm not the kind of person that just says, oh, I'm being attacked. You know, I'm like, okay, maybe there's something I'm doing wrong. I need to, like, check myself. Maybe there's something karmic here. You know, maybe I'm really screwed up. And I stumbled into a clairvoyant institute, and they're like, no, it's not really that. You know, you're on a powerful mission, and they're trying to stop you. And so that was later, and that was after a lot of the underworld journeying where, you know, it was really hard to stay alive. And I couldn't really go to school anymore. I ended up just going to concerts, and music and rock and roll was like my savior. Like it just rescued me. It was like, okay, because, you know, music takes you on a journey, and I was already on a journey.
Yeah.
So, and all sorts of synchronistic things happened that kept validating that this isn't just craziness. There's actually something to this that I'm doing, because sometimes I would lose myself and be like, you know, what the hell is going on with you, Laura? Like, you know, should I go on meds? I'm like, no, don't go on meds. It's not the answer. You know, because that my mom was saying, you know, you got to take, like, something's, you seem really upset, or like you're really preoccupied, or you can't focus in school. And it's like, nope, don't medicate me. I'm like, I'm on a mission, okay? You know, deal with it. But it was like I had to run, you know, a human self, and then this part of me that was going into this multidimensional landscape. And that's a lot what my book is about. But finally I gave up after I went to that institute that helped me to understand that, you know, you're on a mission, and they're trying to stop you, and it relates to, you know, the return of balance, you know, sacred union, things that relate to DNA, but also things that relate to Eisenhower's administration and some of these negative ET agendas. And they're like, you've been actively clearing wormholes of inorganic entities. That's what you're doing when you go into these multidimensional landscapes. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I can't believe somebody like actually validated this. And then I'm like, okay, everything's going to be better now. But I was still being, you know, targeted. And then I finally gave up. I said, I can't work against these forces anymore. I got to see where they're wanting me, and I just got to follow where these forces want me to go so that I can face it head on. And when I finally let go, and I just, you know, wasn't trying to go against the current of these targets or whatever, or these forces that were trying to control my future, and I let go, that's when I ended up in this Mars recruitment. And other things happened too that relate to individuals that knew what I was here to do, that had documentation and books about it, but they were more esoteric, or they were more like mythological and more not associated with government, but associated with, you know, understanding archetypes and understanding this particular archetype that I carry, that we all carry. You know, we have our affinities with different archetypes. It doesn't mean that, you know, it's ours or our own territory to claim on an ego level. But, you know, when you let go of ego and surrender to what creation needs from us, there's certain archetypes that a lot of different people connect with. And they don't have to, but sometimes they just make themselves known. But they don't have to overtake either. But for me, it kind of did. And it relates to the Magdalene Sophia energies. And, you know, and it's just something, you know, as a child I remember surrendering to. I said, you can use me, you know, work through me to do what you need to do on this planet. So that kind of really launched things, but it was already in my astro chart. And then finally, when I let go of the control, though, like I was saying, more in my adult years and in my 20s, after I'd already birthed my twins, you know, who I'd pretty much raised by myself. It was very difficult. We don't have trust funds in the Eisenhower family. I had to do food stamps most of my, you know, not easy. I worked my butt off. Anyway, so I got taken to this one person that had this hidden documentation. I was like, cool, you know, because he cast a spell when I was 7 years old to find me, and I thought, oh, that's the control force. And we broke it, you know, whatever spell he put. It's a long story, and it's in my book. But then the next thing, I was like, yay, I'm free now. And the next thing is I go to a gathering, and this person approaches me who was very familiar, that I knew from definitely past lives, and that was a Mars recruiter. And they had quantum access technologies, looking glass technologies, that were able to locate us in a past life so that I would fall for him when I met him. But I thought I was just meeting somebody. I didn't know that he was sent on a mission. I didn't know, you know, until 6 months into the relationship that, you know, those connected to MJ12 specifically sent him to where I was, and they tracked me. And then, you know, he tried to convince me to go to Mars, and, you know, of course, as you know, I got out of it, but it was wrapped up in this love relationship. So it was really hard because he was a very familiar soul. And I couldn't help him and save him, and I could tell that he was becoming partial robot, and he, you know, would miss missions that he did and not have a memory of it. And that's when I really started to learn about my labs and military abduction and secret government stuff, and just the stuff that, went on in the Second World War and Eisenhower's administration. And then I started to connect the dots to just, the need for us to balance the masculine and feminine, how unity is targeted, how the masculine and feminine are targeted, and why we've been dealing with these programmings in media, and in television, that represent the masculine and feminine in a very distorted way, which creates really negative relationships, lots of divorce, lots of, the vows of marriage, should be different anyway, because that sets a person up for almost failure. Like, if we could just write the vows differently, it'd probably be a lot easier. But, how these cultural programmings have been passed down generation to generation, and people think it's normal and just being human. And I'm like, all of this needs to be rewritten, and it's not being written from people who care about, us moving into these higher earth energies, which we've been separated from ever since these cataclysms. Now, of course, we're from all over the cosmos, and everybody's got a different sort of thing. But, it's been a whole life thing. I would say from the time I was potty trained till now, I've always been on my mission. There are times I got really lost. I fell into addiction. I projected onto myself that something was seriously wrong with me. I was hoping that I would go to they would just send me to some mental institution, because I was like, that's got to be easier than this mission, because if this is really for real, this is intense. I'm like, I'm totally fine with being crazy. But then I kept getting validation from psychics and shamans and healers that I would just bump into that were legit, that I'm not, that at all. And in actual fact, I'm doing real deal stuff, and they've taught me how to, love myself and get grounded and complete this underworld journey that, has a lot to do with, rebirth and rebirthing on your own terms, and so like when you can tell something's wrong, when you can feel the evil under the surface, and you're not going to buy into the programming, where else are you going to go? And for the feminine, this journey was really important because, it has to overcome patriarchy, and it's not about the male gender, it's also the patriarchal energies that exist within women. Men can be more in touch with their divine feminine than some women, so it's not about picking on a gender, it's just the necessity of us really coming together and healing this is something that I've always been aware of. So sorry to give you such a long answer, but...
No, I've... It's one of the things I like about talking with you. We can wind you up and listen and everything. Like I said, as soon as I get the cameras put on here, you're going to see how many notes I'm taking. It's like I don't want to interrupt and be that guy, so I take 20 notes on every topic. And I just took a bunch more. And you were saying about how it feels like where it almost might be a release, and almost be a relief. If we were informed that we were crazy, how many times in the past few months I've looked at the news and it's like, you'll see 4 or 5 what was it, at a park yesterday, and at a gunpoint force the father away and rape this woman at a park. You see what's going on in Germany, these rape waves where just on New Year's, all this, go down the list, whether it's San Bernardino shootings, all this stuff. When you're trying to keep a news site going and you're trying to cover the news, it's constant exposure and magnetism toward the most horrible stuff you could imagine. The journalistic phrase, if it bleeds, it leads. That's since yellow journalism, since the beginning of time, that's how it is. If it bleeds, it leads. And I've had the conversation so many times and made the point, I feel like Superman in the Bizarro world, where everything is upside down and backward, or like George Costanza on Seinfeld, where if everything he's done in his life was wrong, he's going to do everything the exact opposite, because if nothing has worked, then therefore the exact opposite of his instinct must be right. And then he ends up getting a dream job with the Yankees. But yeah, that's exactly how I felt for a very long time. It just seems like I question what in the heck I'm doing here, and I know I'm not the only person, Laura, and I know you've been seeking this out pretty much like you said since you were potty trained to the person then, because I know people listening and people that are going to listen after the fact, they're going to have the same feeling. What in the heck am I doing here? What is the point? What is the point of me being here during all of this madness? Someone asking that question, Laura, what do you say to that person?
First of all, I have a ton of compassion. I fully understand. I probably say that to myself at least a few times a day. Mornings are the hardest because I'm just like, oh God, still here. Oh geez. It's mind blowing. Well, I mean, we're really here to get ourselves back. I mean, if you think about it, what does control do? What do programmings do? It takes us away from our soul. So I think number one, it's about soul retrieval. We have to cut ourselves a lot of slack. We're born with amnesia. We're stuck in situations that we can't exactly get out of. I mean, I would have loved to leave home at 5, like, okay, I'm out of here. You know, I love my family. It's not that I don't like them, but, like, get me out of, like, the system and the control and the TV culture. It's like, there's better things out there, you know, and I could feel that. And I was always about freedom. So, I mean, I think that's number one, is that we just get ourselves back and not allow ourselves to get so immersed in it all. You know, we can observe, we can be detached, we can witness these other timelines, but if we over-identify with them, then it gets kind of sticky. And so I think, you know, the real purpose is, you know, where do we need to unstick ourselves? You know, where perhaps in past lives did we make agreements or get immersed in the matrix? And what do we need to balance out or heal in order to really get in touch with, you know, our potential that has been dormant and shut down for a really long time? You know, and I think that's the greatest priority. I mean, we're only humans, you know, for soul development. You know, it's not really, sometimes, it feels like we have to save this world. We got to wake everybody up and we got to stop this 3D madness. And yes, to a certain degree, while we're in these bodies, we should attempt to do that. But if we make it all about that and only that, we're going to wake up crushed every day. And I have to remind myself, you know, like, don't be crushed. You know, that's just a part of it. That's what you do as a human for, you know, making a contribution. But the real deal stuff is that we have ourselves to fall back on. You know, we can balance this out, just like with the cell phone, you know. It can't be like, got to save everything. You know, the Earth is multidimensional. Gaia is multidimensional. We're being given this experience of duality based in some of these sort of more mythological or metaphorical things like the tree of good and evil. So, okay, it's like, great. We've seen evil. Thank you very much. Made it loud and clear that there is evil, you know. But the tree of good and evil has to do with our DNA and the dumbing down of our DNA. And we're only in duality as long as we're in our lower chakras. And so even if we wake up in a world of duality and in a system of duality, we can go through the motions without being infiltrated to where we're in our negative ego or mistreating people and ourselves. So I think the trick is, okay, maybe you can't get off the grid right away. Maybe that's a great goal, and that's a good goal to have. But how can we wake up in the matrix every day and still hold an energy of balance and unity and hold that vibration, because it's going to offset a lot of unconscious people. And so I think it's not only our job to kind of wake up to the truth within us without it having to be a truth that everybody agrees with, but as long as our bodies agree, because our bodies, you know, the reason we have physical symptoms is because it's trying to teach us. It's trying to keep us on track with what our truth is. That's the ultimate place to start. You know, it's not going to be the same across the board for everybody, but there might be facts that we can all agree upon that are proven, you know, that it's like, okay, yeah, I can see that that's red. You can see that that's blue. Okay, well, that's truth. But, you know, there's some experiences that are not going to match each other. So understanding that oneness is diversity and harmony, to really learn to love and respect the differences in each other, to do the inner work, and then to be in the matrix but not of it, so that we can help to dislodge souls from being stuck in it, so that they, you know, aren't feeding or being the battery power for these dark technologies and these agendas. And then, you know, I think our contract is up. This is the last lifetime. I think a lot of us light workers, or whatever you want to call us, ascension guides, or just, I don't know, multidimensionally aware beings, or from whatever else star system or universe, I think this is our last call, you know. And I always like to joke, let's leave breadcrumbs and footprints of light. You know, we can't stay stuck in this. It's time for us to move on. And people have enough to go on by now. And if they're going to ignore it, it's really not our problem anymore. We've done all that we can. And this is what this window is about. So I would say the purpose is to understand that this is about soul development, to connect with your spirit, to connect with nature, to understand the magnificence of nature and what it's encoded with, and what we're, you know, restoring and resurrecting, and say goodbye to the rest. You know, whatever, too, about belief systems in religion, recognize the Christ consciousness within you, recognize the goddess energy within you, recognize that you're made of everything that we've been taught to seek outside of ourselves, and then enjoy the liberation, but do something that might, you know, benefit humanity, you know, in order to give you at least a feeling that you're making the world a better place, but don't let it consume you and take you over if you can help it.
Yeah, the balance is one of the most important things for all of us. Like I said, whether it's having a few beers, or, you know, how many times you're checking your cell phone. And there are apps now, how many times you're checking your cell phone. A lot of people are really surprised at just how addicted to the distraction they've become. But yeah, the the balance is, masculine to the feminine, or, how much time you're working versus how much time you're doing charitable work versus how much time you're spending with your family. And it's all about the balance. I love how you said it might be last call. At some point you just have to be comfortable saying, hey, I did what I could to multiply a message to the masses. And, the phrase that just keeps coming back to my mind thinking about that concept is, in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. Because in the age of information, if you don't want this, man, that's not on me anymore. All you got to do is have a question, and we have a joke. We say, oh, if only, we'll be coming out, what was the name of that movie from whatever? And we go, if only we had a device at the access of our fingertips that could instantly grab us any piece of information in the world. If only we had a device that could do that. And it's like, what do? We watch cat videos and check the sports scores, So, in the age of information, ignorance is a choice, and maybe this is last call, because I've been having that feeling a little bit more lately, just going, come on, man, seriously, what am I doing here? And I know these are the topics that you expand upon when you do your in-person lectures, Laura, and as we wrap this up here, I know you're going to be at the 14th Annual Conscious Life Expo, February 19th through 22nd, the place that we met 4 years ago, and you're going to be here again. I don't know, maybe tell us a little bit about what you plan on doing at the Conscious Life Expo, and maybe if you have any other events before then, or some other stuff coming up that people might want to make themselves aware of, and maybe they can take a cross-country trip and make an event out of it.
Oh, excellent. Okay, I'm just trying to find it here. Okay, so I'll be on a panel on Saturday, and it's a panel about ascension. And then I will be speaking that same evening. And my talk is called Ascension Keys, and it's really about understanding, that the shift is within us, and we need to bring it out of ourselves. It basically covers things like the 13th gate galactic zodiac, which is actually 13 signs, things about earth grids and how that connects to our DNA, higher earth dimension, sacred geometry, alchemy, organic ascension, artificial intelligence, transhumanism. I'll go over, and then some astrological alignments that are going to be taking place. And then and that's on Saturday at 6:00. And then Monday, disclosure, ET agendas, and timelines. And it's just kind of like my version of, what needs to be disclosed connected to, extraterrestrials and, these agendas and some of the treaties and, what we need to do in the face of all this. And it's a lot easier than we think, but it's a lot harder than we can imagine. I mean, when we think about it, it's like the principles of love and unity and peace. It sounds like, ooh, fluffy and great,
Right.
But we also have to face our darkness. We have to go in and purify and face the shadow, and so sometimes people are in denial of some of those parts of ourselves, so I really encourage, polarity integration, embracing the light and dark, so that if we are going to be positive, it's actually truly authentic and not just being idealistic or in denial of what we got to do.
Yeah, you can't be naive about it. You cannot be naive about it. You got to be aware, I know I'm going to win this battle against this dragon, so I don't even need to bring my sword today. No. That's the wrong path to take. To just say, I got this. You can't let your guard down. These are some really powerful, ultimate battle between light and dark, good and evil, things going on. I mean, yes, the good does win, but it might work up a sweat trying to get there,
Definitely. And we do need to be on guard, and that's fine because we're being thorough. There's many layers to us. And the thing is, when you agree to a job that you don't like, or you're plugged into the matrix on some level because it's easier, there's going to be things that you invite into your space that you're going to have to keep in check until you get yourself kind of out of it and co-create your way into a reality that's more sustainable and more, about the balance of all this stuff. And so, yeah, I really encourage it. I always have my sword with me, kind of sleeping, with trying not to get too deep into the sleep zone. It's but there's a lot of great tools and techniques that, we can use. But, this is a time of really understanding our dark and light. And the thing is, if we don't embrace our dark, something else is going to come in and control us. And the thing is, if, we don't embrace, our light, then, then we're really running a negative energy and we're staying in a low frequency. So I say embrace all aspects of self, all polarity, bring them into a dance instead of a power struggle, and nothing's going to be able to really penetrate you. But yes, absolutely keep watching your back, because these are critical times right now, and they want to stop us. They're they're shaking in their shoes, but they're also not quitting.
Right. Yeah. Very few people relinquish this type of power and control very easily, but it's the the Joseph Campbell hero story. It ends the same way every time. The good guys, good girls, they end up on top. It's just you might have to be in it for the long haul, and I think if we found each other in these conversations, the listeners out there, the websites, just the information truth seekers, the people out there, hey, we're meeting in the middle here, and while we have the internet, we better use it for our advantage. Hey, Laura, in our last couple seconds here, about 15 seconds, give out your website so people can stay in touch.
Okay, my website's cosmicgaiasophia.com. It's not great stated, but it'll give you information about the readings I do. I do session work with people to help them get a grip on this information and to help them clear foreign energy and really empower and upgrade DNA and just all sorts of things that I do. And then it should list some of my events. I'll update it. But, and it's got some articles. So check that out, and then you can find me on Facebook. And thanks for listening, and thanks for having me on. It's always great to connect with you.
Absolutely. Same here. We'll talk again soon. And for everybody out there, I appreciate you for checking out the show. Whew, it's a million miles a minute when you got Laura Eisenhower on. It's always a blast. Thank you so much. Special thanks to Laura. Check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com, youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia, on Twitter at American_media_, and do a search for thenewamericanmedia.com on Facebook and like the page. For everybody out here in the TNAM radio network, I just want to say I appreciate you. I love you. We'll talk again soon. Peace.
Hi, everybody. You're listening to Agree to Disagree with Brian Engelman, and this is John B. Wells reminding you that not only is Brian Engelman a cool guy, and not only is the NewAmericanMedia.com a very cool platform, but here's a cool idea for you, too. Are you alone? Not really. Do you like dogs? Do you like cats? You do. Of course you do. Everybody does. One or the other, maybe even both. There are a lot of dogs and cats that are at shelters right now, and if somebody doesn't take them home, they're going to wind up euthanized. That's a nice way of saying they're going to be killed because there's simply not enough room. I guarantee it, the best dogs and the best cats, the best pets come from shelters. There's something about dogs and cats they know. They know where they are. You walk through one of them, and certainly at least one is going to look at you and go, I wish you'd take me home. I'm in hell. Please take me out of here. It'll be the best thing that you ever did for your soul. You'll feel good about it. And not only that, but you have a friend for life. Doesn't matter if you got money, you don't have money. Well, it doesn't make any difference to a dog or cat. All they need is the sound of your voice and maybe even the stroke of your hand, and they're fine. Maybe a little food every once in a while. The sweetest sound that those pets ever hear is your voice. Think it over and adopt a cat or a dog from a local shelter today. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did.
Your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.